If you compare beer with bratwurst,
And cheese with wine,
or even whiskey,
with donuts,
then we think you can pair all of these delicious drinks with
murder,
conspiracies
missing persons.
and more.
Drink with us as you feed your craving for true crime and creepy stories. When you sit down and think about it, social media really is a wild concept. Strangers across cities, states, provinces, countries, and the entire globe instantaneously making connections out of nowhere. Usually these connections take place over a shared love or hatred for something or someone else, a band, a sports team, or as of lately, a politician. These superficial connections mostly prove harmless, making people feel less alone and more linked to a larger community of like-minded individuals. But occasionally, depending on what someone is seeking through anonymous online relationships or who is behind the made-up name on the other end of the digital tether, the intention can be far more nefarious and the outcome considerably more tragic. In 2017, one young Japanese man discovered just how valuable social media could be when your intentions are evil. For him, there was no shortage of young women online, vulnerable to becoming victims of the man who would ultimately earn the name the Twitter Killer.
Oh, wow. Never heard of the Twitter Killer.
Neither had I.
Sweet. I love new stuff.
You also like X, formerly
Yes.
known as Twitter.
Yes, I do. That's my main go-to nowadays. So yeah, this will be pretty fun.
So I will say that it came from a book. We have a brother-in-law who lives down the street from us, and every birthday he gives me a new serial killer book. And I was looking through it and came across this specific one. And he promised me that when we did a Japanese story, he would give us a Japanese whiskey, which he didn't have. So I'm a little upset about that.
Yeah, kind of a bummer there, but might as well go with I don't know if I'd call it the second best thing, but an equally as good thing from Japan when it comes to the fun libations that they have given to the world. And that is sake. That's what we're going to drink on while we talk about this Japanese Twitter killer.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about sake. I just know that when we go get sushi,
I think it's a rice wine.
It is. Yes, it is a rice wine. But as far as whether it's good or not, I couldn't tell you.
It can be hot or cold.
It can.
This probably will be lukewarm.
This will be mild, which is not chilled. But on the back of the bottle it says there's two excellent choices. One is room temperature there's three, sorry. Room temperature, warm, or on the rocks. And then chilled is just good.
Okay, I want to know how you pronounce it because I'm going to try to say some Japanese words and I'd like you to sound like the idiot first.
I was tempted not even to say it. Just say
you have
it's
to.
Cheap sake. Nope. All right. I did look online as far as some suggestions from Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
And this seemed to come up a lot. So I went with it. It's a cheaper one, but it's pretty common around.
Say the name.
I'm avoiding it.
Do it.
Shochikubai.
Okay, I'm going to say words better than that, so thank you.
Shochikubai. Or Shochikoba.
That was better.
That was better?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm sure it's probably not even how you say it, but I'm sure the show part is right. Let me pour you some here.
I do enjoy sake when we have sushi.
Yeah, I do too. But I honestly, outside of if there's like plum on the name, I don't recognize.
But what's crazy, I don't even think so. I also like to order plum wine.
Yeah.
I don't think that's sake.
It's in the same aisle at our liquor store.
Really?
Yeah, that's
Huh.
sake and wines, and a lot of the
Yeah.
sakes.
Oh man, it tastes like sake, and I like sake. I don't know why I made that face, as it's just fine.
Yeah.
It's sake.
Tastes like every sake I've had.
Every sake.
I do think I like it warm though, better than chilled.
I think I do
cold.
like warm sake.
Over.
I do, because it's like drinking a warm, comforting
Yeah,
substance that also makes you feel really good about life.
yeah. I'll probably on the next one I have ditch
Just straight from the
ditch
bottle.
the ice, even though it's not warm. It's room temperature. I think I'd like it better.
Nope, it's sake.
It is.
Sake has an interesting flavor. It's very specific.
Yeah, it's very and I'm not like, if I don't know much about a certain type of alcohol, I'm not gonna throw a bunch of money at a bottle just
Right.
to, like, what if you spend $40 on, which sake, I'm sure it gets
It's
expensive.
delicious.
It's not that expensive over our place, so I'm sure if I threw a certain amount on one, it'd probably taste the same to me. So why not just get
Right.
something like that? So that's what we're drinking while talking about the Japanese Twitter killer.
Well, our first Japanese-inspired drink, sake, is perfectly paired with our first story that takes place in Japan. So, Takahiro Shiraishi
Ooh.
was born on October 9th, 1990. His mom specifically picked out the name Takahiro because it means vast prosperity, which is exactly what she hoped for her firstborn. As a child, he was an average student, but diligent in his academic efforts. He played baseball and ran track during his later years in high school, but never stood out athletically. The only thing that seemed off about young Takahiro was his interest in and his apparent affinity for playing choking games with his friends.
The only game I could think of with choking is like jujitsu.
No, it's like the blackout game. I feel like it's like a common social media challenge where you make your friends pass out.
When that was going around, yeah. Not when we were kids.
No, we're a little old.
No, if you were choking someone when we were kids, you were either mad at them,
I don't know,
or play wrestling.
So in 2009, so he's only 5 years younger than us, Takahiro graduated high school. And instead of going on to college, he began working full-time at a supermarket. Working there lasted roughly 2 years, and then Takahiro moved on to working at a pachinko parlor. Do you want to guess what pachinko is?
So it's a parlor. I don't know. Strip bar?
Not yet. Pachinko is actually a mechanical game that originated in Japan. It can be used as a simple arcade game, but more commonly it's used for gambling. So it's a gambling den.
Okay. There's different types of games?
I don't know. I looked it up and that's what they said. And the picture looked like a kid's arcade.
Oh, okay.
To me.
Like a lot of pinball machines.
Yeah. Now, Takahiro moved on from the pachinko parlor and began working as a scout for the Kabukicho. That's Kabukicho. Kabukicho.
I don't think anybody will hold it against you if you don't get some of this right. But you're doing great so far, thanks. I'm guessing.
Which is basically the equivalent of a red light district. As a scout, it was Takahiro's job to convince young women to work as either hostesses in sex shops or even function as prostitutes.
Huh.
Takahiro found the social media site.
HR for the pimps and debauchery.
Yeah, and he actually utilized Twitter as a valuable tool in his role as a scout.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Now, it was through this line of work that Takahiro honed his skills in identifying vulnerable women who were more susceptible to the influence of others. It was also while working as the scout that Takahiro would be arrested, and as a result, he would be given a suspended sentence.
What was he doing wrong exactly?
He was trying to get women to become prostitutes. They charged him with something connected to like sex trafficking or sex crimes. I don't know. I'm
just curious, like, if he's in a certain, like, if someone was doing that in Las Vegas, would they be able to charge him with something? Since
No,
so much
because
of that
prostitution is legal in Las
there.
Vegas.
Maybe there's a place you can do it, or maybe there's not. I don't know much about Japan and how it's.
Well, I'm assuming it's not because he got charged and convicted. So, still living at home, unemployed, and under the shame of his suspended sentence, Takahiro became depressed, even telling his father at one point that he had nothing left to live for. Now, Takahiro did not let his current situation keep him down for too long. He decided that what he needed was his own apartment with a loft. But without a job, he couldn't just move on and get one. So Takahiro decided he would once again try to recruit women for his cause. Takahiro created 2 different Twitter personas in March of 2017. One Twitter handle translated to the name Professional Hangman. This individual advertised themselves as a religious leader with special skills in assisting those who were dealing with intense emotional pain, who were also considering suicide. This online persona claimed, quote, "I want to help people who are really in pain. Please DM me anytime." The other Twitter name used by Takahiro was Shinta, which means I want to die. Takahiro then searched for his vulnerable targets using the hashtag suicide recruiter, and it wasn't long until he made a connection.
Interesting. Is Japan where that forest is, the suicide forest?
What a good question. That didn't come up in my research.
I'm just curious because, I mean, if it is, I feel like that's a culture that maybe, I don't know, suicide's a little more.
What's kind of crazy is Japan is an incredibly small country in terms of size, even population, and they're number 7 in terms of suicides, at least I think in 2020.
Is that per capita or total?
That's percentage of population.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. What was the first?
I didn't.
You don't remember?
I don't know.
Which countries killing themselves the most?
I feel like it's worth a Google.
Probably the U.S.
I don't even think it'd be the U.S.
I don't know. We got a lot of mental illness around here.
Interesting.
But yeah, I think that forest is in Japan, if I'm remembering right. Which that interesting connection there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe that is just a part of the wild west that is Twitter or /X. That's, a deep dark corner of it that I've never come across, because that just seems like a crazy thing to go out there. And
I wish I would have added this to my notes. It's upstairs in my old lady binder. But one of the sources went into the different types of Twitter names and like Twitter purposes, and one is just like, because you want to share your ideas. So you make a handle, and that had a specific name.
Yeah.
And it went all the way down to, in Japan, there are people who create this specific name, I wish I could remember it, for deep conversation. And these sort of like suicide Twitter handles, these people fall within that category, like looking for a connection with regards to this very specific dark aspect to their life.
Wow. Which
I don't do the Twitter. So all of this was very new to me.
No, you don't say. You don't tweet. Which I wish there was something X. Tweeting was so much better. Though I think that's what we still call it. I did have a question. Oh, the first handle you said. What was the?
So it's a Japanese name. So it's a Japanese name that translates to professional hangman or suspension pro.
Interesting.
Like
and then what did you
air.
Said his the tag he had on
Shita is his second name, which translates in English we say I want to die. It doesn't actually translate to I want to die. It's like deep despair, communicating I want death. And what's really interesting is any sort of English resources for this story are incredibly limited because of the Japanese language and it being translated. So there's not a lot in terms of when he used which. I think he simultaneously used each as though he was a different person when targeting these individuals. So at times he would this is my theory. At times he would contact one individual as, I want to die, expressing like, we feel the same. They would enter suicide pacts together. And then he would also contact them as this professional hangman to assist their suicide. And the reason why I feel confident in that assertion is because our final almost victim, who goes by the name Yumi, actually had dinner with Takahiro as this professional hangman, while she was also talking to Shinta about wanting death.
That makes sense.
And so I think he targeted these people from both sides.
When you said the first one, though, you said I don't know what to call his tagline or what. Was contact me, DM me if what was it?
Basically, if you are looking to kill yourself.
Oh.
If you're in emotional pain and you're looking for an out, DM me. He presented himself as a religious expert.
Gotcha.
Who could help them pass, which I'll tell you, there's a lot of euphemisms for death by suicide. I'm just going to say suicide.
Oh, yeah. Don't go, woke language.
We're not going to say they want to exit.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Or what's the one they're all saying now? It's, dang, I can't remember. There's one.
I don't know.
It kind of cracks me up. I guess it's a creative way to say suicide, but
anyway,
they might kill themselves. Unalive. Unalive themselves. Really? It's the same thing.
Now, Japan has pretty strict privacy laws, so the names of Takehiro's victims are supposed to be suppressed. So we're not going to use the actual names, even though I think you can probably find them online. Instead, I will be identifying them using letters, starting with A. So Takehiro met victim A in the summer of 2017, and the two developed a friendship over a shared depression and alleged interest in suicide, even meeting once in public along with victim A's boyfriend. As the relationship grew, Takehiro and victim A, as the relationship grew between Takehiro and victim A, Takehiro was able to convince her to give him $4,500 American, which I think is 500,000 yen.
That's not a small amount to just handing somebody that you met on Twitter.
Now, using those scammed funds, Takehiro was able to get his loft apartment. He moved into number 205, which was an apartment equipped with a loft in Zama, Japan, which is a suburb south of Tokyo. This apartment was small. It was only about 150 square feet, but to Takehiro, this apartment meant absolutely everything. So when victim A seemed to be pulling away from him, and whatever twisted emotional hold he had on her, Takehiro was very worried he no longer would be able to use her financially, or even worse, that she would eventually ask for the money back. So Takehiro decided it was time to help victim A commit suicide.
Wow. All right. I'm interested to see where this goes.
So most stories present it as he seeks victims, he wants to murder them, he just uses vulnerable people as his target audience, when I think really it started out, he was just trying to scam vulnerable people out of money, and it turned into something else.
Okay, cool.
Now, I'm not sure if Takehiro represented himself to her as the man that she had given the money to, or if he used his other Twitter persona, but eventually, in August of 2017, victim A would put in her notice at her office job indicating that she was done working there. And then, On her work desk, she left a note intended for her family, asking them not to come looking for her as she was running away. Then, at some point, after receiving instructions via text message, which read, quote, "Meet me at the train station. Before you do, throw your phone in the ocean," end quote. Victim A set out to meet the professional hangman.
Man. And that was the last message she received on that phone?
Yes, which she didn't throw into the ocean. She actually hid in a toilet at the train station because she was like, I'm at the train station. I'm not going to leave and go throw this in the ocean. So she hid it in a stall.
Did she put it in a toilet?
I'm assuming she just hid it in a stall.
On the ground behind a
probably
a
behind a tank, yeah. Then, after arriving at Takahiro's loft apartment, Takahiro gave Victim A whiskey mixed with sleeping pills and tranquilizers.
Oh, we should be drinking.
I know. As Victim A sat subdued, unable to flee, Takahiro decided it was time to grope her chest. And noting that she seemed to want to resist, but she couldn't, Takahiro felt an excitement rise within him. And almost as though he was guided by that excitement, Takahiro next began to choke Victim A while he sexually assaulted her. Next, using a long rope, Takahiro bound Victim A's body. Then he took the other end of the rope, strung it over the railing of his loft, and proceeded to hoist Victim A up until her body was hanging in midair, the rope cutting off oxygen to her brain. For the next half an hour, Takahiro simply watched as Victim A's body convulsed on and off until eventually Victim A urinated and then passed away.
No one's seeing this.
No, he's in his tiny apartment.
No, I know, but he's hanging her over the balcony.
No, it's a loft inside. So there,
I got
so
you.
there are drawings where you walk in, there's a tiny kitchen, there's a loft.
I gotcha.
Living space.
Wow. Jeez.
Could you imagine what would be happening in Japan if this was happening outside? No, it's a loft inside his home.
Yeah, or maybe he's doing this, I don't know, the building's mostly empty, so he was able to get away with it. But the loft makes more sense. And also, that's pretty demented. Jeez.
Yes.
So when he bound her up, just to give our listeners a better visualization of this, obviously some of that rope is around her neck. Is he bounding other parts of her body?
So it says that he ties her arms, he ties her legs, and then he ties this around her body and her neck, and then loops it up over. And one source, which was one of my main sources, which is another podcast called Rotten Mango, she uses the phrase, he literally plays tug of war with her body for 5 minutes, which is hoisting, lowering, as though he's discovering this for himself. He didn't really want to do it. And then he just slowly progressed into discovering this is the kind of person he wants to be. However, he really wanted a loft apartment, which makes me go,
maybe he always
I think something inside of him was
yeah, probably.
Plans.
The details of this, does this come from something he wrote, how he did it?
So
or
he met
interviews.
He met with an author called Mr. Ono while he was in prison. And I just picture him as he thinks of himself as a genius. But underneath all that, I think he was just mediocre at best. And so he's trying to play up to this author. And so he holds himself to this grand person. He's just a dick. I don't know what that is in Japanese. He's such a jerk.
Well, I will give him this. I mean, he has an evil genius, if you will, to him to be able to lure this woman in.
Oh, we're going to talk about what he uses
and
too later on.
And then convince her to kill herself. And that's where I was interested. Like when I said, "Oh, this is going to be interesting," when you said that she had to go. I was curious if he was going to actually like watch her kill herself,
Which
and whether
he
this would
doesn't
be.
do.
No, that's, you don't have to tell me anything.
Okay.
I was just
Let it
wondering.
unfold like
I
a
was
good
just-
sake. We're going
when-
to open it
yeah.
up.
I let it unfold,
Okay.
and so now I have the first kill, and he didn't do that, and
No.
he actually did kill her.
He murdered her.
He murdered her, and
Yes.
it would have been. I don't know what's more demented, to like convince her to actually do it and just watch her do it and do that many times.
I don't know. I feel like you get into that conversation of people who have emotional pain who don't actually want to kill themselves, but because society has made it so, I don't want to say romantic in killing yourself, but it's very prominent
Yeah.
in pop culture, that I would hate it if he was like, I'm going to make you kill yourself. Just like it's such a simple solution. Because I don't think it is. I just think young people, which was his target, it feels like a simple solution. But really, it's just a way to verbalize how upset you are or
Certainly.
the emotions you feel. All right, let's keep going. Now, Takahiro.
Real quick, with this one though,
Mhm.
are you going to share details, or do we have any other details as far as what he was saying to her to convince her to show up for the purpose of unaliving herself?
No, but so what I find very interesting is she basically leaves a suicide note. She wraps up her life. She tells her work she's not coming back. And then he gets super weird where he's like giving her these like weird text instructions where even when she's like, he says, when you see me, don't approach me. Like follow me at a distance. Where I think he makes them think this whole process of killing yourself is this grandiose, major thing.
Well, and he's allowing them to perceive he's in control.
Yeah.
And he has it now, and they no longer have to worry about like making that decision, which is smart. I mean, I'll give it to him.
I just don't.
Let's keep going.
Hold your thoughts. Now, Takahiro, afraid of being discovered with victim A's murdered corpse, remember he is serving his suspended sentence, spent the next 2 days dismembering her body in a bathtub. Takahiro would wrap some of A's organs and pieces of flesh in puppy training pads, like those blue ones, and then he would wrap those in newspaper before throwing them away in his like apartment trash cans. With other larger bones and the victim's skull, Takahiro stacked the remains in like a large box and then covered them in kitty litter with the hopes of absorbing that smell of decomposition.
I don't think that'd work.
No. His neighbor said his whole house, like his apartment, reeked, which reminds me of Jeffrey Dahmer. And these neighbors are like, it smells like somebody is dead.
Yeah.
And nobody cares.
Yeah. And isn't it Dahmer's actually putting, I mean, he's got flesh out, but he's actually putting it in, doesn't he have it in a chemical? That doesn't matter.
No.
The kitty litter almost would make it worse, I think.
Because it's odor absorbing.
It is to a degree. It doesn't even cover cat piss up all the way. And
well,
so
that's the best.
Especially if you don't change it for a little bit, then you have cat piss and cat litter smell. So I don't know what decomposing body smells like. I just have talked to people that do, and and obviously probably most of our listeners, because you're all sickos listening to true crime podcasts, know the description of it, and it is a smell that you don't forget mixed with cat litter. That would be awful for all those that had to live around him.
Now, knowing that victim A's boyfriend, whom Takahiro met out and about one time, could connect Takahiro to the now missing woman, Takahiro took to Twitter in order to reach out and manipulate this distraught young man. Reinforcing that nothing is going to get better now that his girlfriend is gone, Takahiro, acting as either the professional hangman or Shinta, sends A's boyfriend, whom we can now officially call Victim B, the same instructions.
Oh my gosh.
Meet me at the train station, but throw your phone away first in the ocean.
Oh man. All right. They still haven't changed my mind.
He
He's
does.
smart. and he's using the Yellowstone train station.
I know. Before Yellowstone.
Yeah, before Yellowstone.
And once Victim B was inside Takehiro's loft apartment, Takahiro took the life of his second victim, repeating much of what he did with Victim A except for the sexual assault.
Oh, he didn't grope his chest.
No. Takahiro killed his first and only male victim in an effort to cover his tracks.
How did he do it?
The same way. He hoisted his body. He gave him whiskey with tranquilizers and sleeping pills, and then hoisted his body and hung him.
He probably did sexually do something.
Licked his chest, at least, I'm sure.
Like, test it out. and then he's talking to this author. He's like, no, I'm not gay.
And then he disposed of Victim B's body in a similar fashion as his first victim, adding another box containing a skull and miscellaneous body parts, covered by kitty litter, to his small apartment space.
Isn't that strange? And I need to stop.
It's all strange.
I need to stop interjecting because you still have 4 more victims to go, right?
There's 9.
9, jeez.
Plus Yumi.
You and me? Just kidding.
That's how it's spelled.
I know. I know that there's a name, Yumi.
Uh-huh.
Isn't it strange that there's this maybe it's not with all of them. Maybe the serial killers that actually get away with it don't have, like, they refuse to give in to this, but I bet they have the want to keep something around. Because that's the only thing that explains why he's keeping these around.
So I'll tell you this. He thought of many ways to dispose of his victims. And one, he was like, I shall dissolve their body in acid. And then he goes, wait, won't the acid just dissolve the bathtub? And so he's like, I can't.
No, you gotta watch
can't
Breaking
have
Bad.
acid.
You gotta watch Breaking Bad. You do it in plastic.
One of the reasons why he says he hangs them is because he has this grand plan that he's going to lay their bodies out in the wilderness, because Japan is actually very mountainous and forest land. And he wants people to think that they hung themselves, like they actually committed suicide.
In the suicide forest.
But then I think he was like, well, how do I get their bodies out of my house? And then he just was like, I'm going to do the best that I can, and this is the best that I can do. But the fact that you said that makes me think of Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart, where this person is murdered and buried beneath the floorboards. And the man who murdered this person hears the heartbeat. And I'd like to think that...
Isn't that The Raven?
No, it's called The Telltale Heart.
I thought The Raven was about something talking about under the floorboard.
No.
Dang it. Might have to cut that part out.
We were doing so good. All right. So 1.5 weeks later, Takahiro would find himself with his third victim, this time a high school student. Victim D would be then we're moving on. We're just passing victim C. Victim D would be a 19-year-old college student.
We're passing victim C?
Yep, we're just moving. Victim E was a 26-year-old married mother who was struggling with postpartum depression and the stress of raising her daughter, who had a developmental disability. She was the only married victim.
Is he killing all these people
the same way? Yep. Victim F was a 17-year-old junior in high school who actually spent a significant amount of her own money before her murder on buying Takahiro food and taking him out to do activities.
So he has 6 boxes with heads and kitty litter in his apartment.
And bone.
He's taken up a lot of square feet.
In his,
Every box is
a
like
telltale heart, just
1
beating.
square feet away.
He climbs down from his loft, kicks a box. He's like, gosh, victim C. Jeez.
Oh, man.
Victim G was a 17-year-old student.
Are they?
They're all girls.
Are they? I'm sorry. I'm kind of fixated on the decomposing bodies or parts of bodies in his apartment. Are they cardboard boxes?
They're like storage crates. So I think of like the plastic bins.
Yeah. That's
and coolers.
And
when we get more specific.
And his neighbors are noticing a smell.
Yep.
So with lids in a plastic,
still
stinking.
Yes.
Right, let me just write that down really quick.
Now, by the time Takahiro dismembered victim H, a 25-year-old woman, he had gotten the process of dismembering down from 2 full days to a mere 2 hours. His pathology remained the same, however. Find a vulnerable young girl online, lure her to your apartment with either the promise of helping her die by suicide or an agreement of a suicide pact, then ply her with whiskey, sedatives, and sleeping pills, sexually assault her, and then tie her up.
Which letter are we on now?
We are on H.
Okay, so 9?
8.
8 bodies.
Yes.
Boy,
finally strangling and hanging the victim.
Is he using the same X handle? Twitter.
The whole time. Shita or whatever means suspension pro or professional hangman.
Dang. All right. His whole method and everything he's using is smart. This guy is so fucking dumb. It's ridiculous.
It's just what are you body part.
And the trail goes right to him.
Well,
like, does he not know what IP addresses are? And the fact that all of these people disappearing.
We're going to get into that.
Talking to the same
all right,
two people.
You have to hang on to this.
Which are...
Because I have questions. So when Takahiro met victim I, a 23-year-old woman, she was living in a psychiatric group home. When I went missing, her older brother became concerned, as older brothers should do. While looking for her, he discovered a note in which his sister said she was sorry and she thanked him for everything. I's brother was not satisfied with simply finding this note. He was not just willing to give up and accept that his sister was gone. So, after...
Is this again like a runaway note? Like,
yes.
I'm still alive.
I'm so sorry. Away. Yeah. So, after calling the police
to... Well, that's kind of smart. That's how you don't have...
That's how he gave. Yes. But after calling the police to report his sister missing, he managed to log into his sister's Twitter account. Looking through her interactions, he became even more concerned and suspicious regarding what could have happened to her. Using the name I Love Croquettes, victim I had been having a private conversation with somebody who went by the name Shinta. And part of that conversation read, quote...
Croquettes or crochets?
No, it's croquettes. They are dough balls. I'll tell you. You're welcome. They are dough balls that can be filled with meat, vegetables, or seafood. Like little pockets full of delicious...
It's an empanada. Japanese empanada.
In Japan, they're called croquettes.
I like that name for it. It's cute.
Now, as a part of the conversation, she once said, quote, I want to leave, but I'm afraid to do it alone. Please DM me. Now, victim I's brother also noticed that Shinta was interacting with another Twitter user who had come to be known by the name Yumi. And that's how all of Japan knows this young lady. After connecting with Yumi and then bringing in law enforcement, this unlikely group hatched a plan to catch the figure behind the Twitter name Shinta. Yumi continued conversing with Shinta, and when he gave her instructions to meet him at the train station, but throw away her phone in the ocean first. Law enforcement was ready.
And when I said, "Oh, that's kind of smart," with you know, telling him to write the note the way he was, I in my mind immediately took it back, because literally that's all it takes. Just one person that goes missing to have somebody
Who cares about them?
Yeah, to go into their Twitter account and read it. Because if somebody went missing and you've got access to any of their social media, which a lot of people don't protect their logins. Like, they're pretty easy. Like, most people, if you're that close to somebody, you know they use the same username and password for everything. Or you follow them on Twitter and you're like, oh, I know what I know the password. That's all it takes.
It leads me to a lot of questions, though, where Japan obviously embraces the privacy of its citizens, and cell phone companies absolutely protect the privacy of their citizens. But at what point do we as a population say, okay, the privacy of the people stop mattering when we have 2 victims, 3 victims, 4 victims, 5 victims? And I do think it takes... Well,
what do you mean, the privacy of the people? You mean the victims themselves?
So let's say
the people.
Every single A through H victim reported them missing, and police looked into it and was like, hey, they've either talked to Shinta or the professional hangman. Why don't we ask Joey Doxy or whoever was in charge of Twitter at that time if we can have the IP address related to these 2 names so we can go talk to this guy? Like, hey, dude, do you know where these people are?
I don't know how
it's a balance.
Japan works, but in America, they 100% could do that.
I don't think they can. That's the problem.
No, on the Patriot Act, they 100% can.
But I've come across many cases where police go and say, hey, we know this victim was in this area, and that's the last time they were seen alive. Can we get a cell phone dump? Every single person whose phone like pinged off this antenna.
Oh, yeah, that's...
And cell phone companies go, nope, you sure can't.
Yeah, that's different.
Anyway.
But I think they technically can if they get the right things because of the Patriot Act.
But it's all in Japanese, so we don't know.
And they probably don't have the Patriot Act, or they have their own version of it. I mean, we got the idea from somewhere, so...
I don't think it was Japan. No.
Thanks, George Bush.
Yes. When I met him one time. So shout out, George W., if you're listening. We met one time in 2002. Now, when Takehiro...
Well, every president since him have totally agreed that the Patriot Act is the way to go.
All right.
So, go ahead. I digress.
When Takehiro opened the door to his loft apartment to officers on October 31st, 2017, their first question was, where is victim I? To which Takehiro calmly answered that she was in the apartment with him. She was just in the freezer. Then Takehiro went on to admit...
Was she really in the freezer?
Yeah. Well, they're coolers.
Wait. But you said they were just plastic bins.
The most recent bodies, no. He kept them in coolers.
So he was like, or he was running out of room. It's like, I don't need a lot.
150 square feet.
I can use the freezer. Probably help with the smell too.
Takehiro went on to admit to officers that in just 2 months, he actually murdered 9 people, and their dismembered body parts were spread throughout 3 coolers and 5 storage crates, also known as boxes.
Did he actually tell them?
Yes, he did.
No.
Yes, he did. He literally pointed and said, she's in there. And it was a freezer. Just... You, Takehiro. All in all, 9 severed heads and 240 bones were recovered from what came to be known as the House of Bones.
Oh, that's kind of a lame name.
I don't know. It's kind of cool. In addition, to body parts and weapons, investigators would recover a blender. which would test positive for human blood, despite Takahiro's insistence that he never ate the human remains. He only searched up, what are the effects of eating human flesh online?
He probably was like,
how much can I eat?
No. He's probably in bed just like dying of some, I don't know, something that's upsetting his stomach that he ate. And it was human. And he was like, oh, I feel like I am going to die. What could it possibly be? Should I Google it? No, I shouldn't. Should I Japanese Google it? No, I should. Okay, I need to because I'm dying.
He was fine.
I mean, he lived through it, but that's what I imagine. It's like, why would, I mean, I don't know. He does a lot of dumb things. He probably would. Like, I really want to eat this, but before I do, I should probably make sure it's not going to kill me. Whereas a real serial killer, a real badass serial killer will eat it.
Thank you, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Unless it hurts him, he's not Googling shit.
Now, officers would also notice that there was one empty box, most likely just waiting until Takahiro could murder his next victim, who most likely would have been Yumi. Now, on a really sad note, after working to catch Takahiro and ultimately saving her own life and countless others, Yumi would eventually succumb to death by suicide.
Taki won with Yumi.
What that means. Now, Takahiro would be charged with 9 murders. The youngest victim was just 15 years old. Takahiro's defense attorneys advocated for a shorter sentence. They argued that Takahiro should be found guilty of murder with consent, considering each of his victims had expressed suicidal thoughts.
This is the defense's?
Yes.
Oh, that's smart.
The maximum sentence for this charge would have been a short 7 years.
Whoa. Did the judge like, fuck no?
No, just wait. 2 things worked against this argument at trial. The first was that there were defensive wounds found on some of the remains recovered from Takahiro's apartment, indicating that if the victims were fighting back, they most likely were not also consenting to being murdered. The second?
Taki should have said, look, I use their bodies as practice dummies for my martial arts.
Just wait. The second thing that worked against this was Takahiro himself, who boldly told the court that none of his victims expressed any consent to the things that he did to them. Takahiro would go,
oh my gosh.
He would go into detail about how all he wanted to do was rape women. He specifically was aroused by women who were surprised by their rape, as opposed to women who expected to be raped.
Are there courts like ours
know.
where you either have a case because you pled not guilty, or you plead guilty and it no longer goes to the court?
So I have zero specific knowledge about Japanese courts, but their parliament, when they meet, it's out of control. So that's what I picture. So Takahiro would go into detail about how all he wanted to do was rape women. He specifically was aroused by women who would have been surprised by their rape. If women were consenting to his actions, it wouldn't be exciting. And he needed them to be surprised, so they couldn't have been consenting. Takahiro would even go on to say that it was actually the government's fault that he had to murder these women. All he really wanted to do was sexually assault them. But if he did, and they went to the police, and he was serving a suspended sentence, then he would get into more trouble. So he had no choice. He had to murder them.
Your stupid laws keep me from doing what I want to do, which made me do worse.
In fact, that wasn't the only time Takahiro worked against his defense. At different times, Takahiro would make statements like, quote, I thought murder was okay as long as I wasn't caught, end quote. And, quote, I would regret nothing if I didn't get caught, end quote.
This dude is literally, and excuse my R word here though, but BTK's cousin.
Well, you can't say that. We don't use that language here.
But he is. I mean.
Or he's not, because let me tell you this. So when looking at Takahiro actually lured his victims.
He literally is like a BTK.
There was a professor from Kyoto University. His name was Yasushi Saginara, and he noticed that Takahiro would actually use a very common method employed by counselors when they wanted to make their clients feel comfortable, which was you have to limit the space metaphorically between the counselor and the counsee. And so he would use this notion of suicidal ideation to make these victims feel like they and Takahiro were one, even though Takahiro never actually possessed suicidal ideation.
Look, don't get me wrong. I said it before.
Smart.
I said it before. His method was incredible. I think it was like evil genius type level. But then he just couldn't take it
I just think at the end
take
he was
that
like,
genius to the next step, which literally, dude, stop. I feel like I'm always like trying to figure out how can the killer get away with it. But sometimes how they get caught is so stupid, or what they're doing is so stupid that you do think, what could they have done different? But literally, don't keep the heads and all of the bones, all that stuff that's stinking up your apartment in your apartment. Okay, I get, like, you don't know what to do with them at the moment, but you literally, hey, he has a blender.
He's gonna blend 9 human beings. No,
start cutting them into smaller pieces. Get in there and put it in a shake and go for a walk along the river and toss it in the river.
No,
like do it Shawshank Redemption style of digging the hole. Just a little bit at a time.
It took him 2 months. 2 months. 9 victims. I think he was
also
a planet that was, or a star that was going to burn hot and fast and just go down.
No, certainly, especially
fire.
the way he was doing it there. Change your handle every time, dude. What the? What are you doing?
I don't know. 2007. Well,
but again, here's the thing. Like the psychosis of the psychology, I think is better.
Psychology.
Psychology. Jeez Louise. Let's cut a little bit of this out.
You keep saying that, and then we post it with you saying, cut this out.
That's right. It's the psychology is kind of there as far as the power trip these guys probably get. And thinking, okay, I've already gotten away with it. Like, I don't know. If our listeners and us can just put ourselves in the thought of like, you got away with murder once. What kind of power trip are you on?
Okay, can I tell you a really crazy story? So, all right. According to one source, Takahiro had just killed victim C, and he was like ready to dismember her body when his girlfriend, or this woman he had been like seeing for a while, shows up at his apartment. And she like comes in and she can smell something. She's like, that smells bad. And they still try to like get it on. And Takahiro can't get it on because he's realized he's a freak of nature and needs something else. And he literally...
he's raping all the bodies. He rapes her, him, and her.
And then he confesses to this girl, I've been killing people. I've been strangling them. And you know what she does?
No.
She goes, okay, Takahiro, namaste. And then she leaves. And she never comes back, which is like kudos for self-preservation. But she never calls the police. Like, he literally confessed to her, I've killed 3 people. I'm a mess. And this lovely, I'm sure, Japanese girl goes, oh... great. See you later. And then never comes back. Good for you.
Although
but she doesn't call police.
That's a load of news that you don't even like. Maybe he.
I don't know.
All right, here's my theory on that.
Think that human beings are.
No, he's probably a weirdo anyway.
He doesn't look weird.
No, but he looks. As soon as you talk, it can change your look. Like if you talk like an idiot, some
But you're
punk,
charming and
some
you're
punk
cute.
comes in and he's so attractive, and then he opens his mouth and it's like,
I don't know. He tried to get on and he couldn't, and she was just like, "Okay, Takahiro, see you later."
And maybe that is a cultural thing too. You never know, like where it's like, well, I don't know, you're a man. I don't know if you're. I imagine he's kind of weird, and he says this to her, and she's like, "I have no idea if you're telling the truth or not, so I'm just gonna leave."
And that's exactly what she did, and she never came back. But she never
now
called the police.
The weight's on you, bitch.
It's your fault.
There's now 6 bodies on your record.
And then he just continued to kill.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't use X. I will never use this murderous social media.
I never thought of X as like a weird name for it until you have said that a couple times. I don't use X. It sounds like you're talking about a drug. I'm not on ecstasy.
I tried really hard for a while. I got on Twitter because I wanted to be mean tweets, which got on Jimmy Kimmel when I would say the rudest things about celebrities. And I never got on mean tweets. And so
you actually tweeted.
Oh, I have mean tweets out there.
Oh, I'm going to go out.
But I never got on mean tweets. And so I don't.
Well, luckily you still have it around because I send you so much stuff from X. Like, look at this. Watch this. This is funny. And you, for the longest time, tried to say, I can't
Which
look at it. And then I was like, no, you're one of my, follow you. And so I made her log back in. And
do you want to know
technically on it.
What happened to Takahiro Shiarishi? In the end, Takahiro was found guilty of all 9 murders, and he was sentenced to death. What's interesting is that in Japan, capital punishment comes by way of hanging. And if that's not ironic enough for the Twitter killer who used the name Professional Hangman and hung his victims, Takahiro's death, well, the man who found pleasure in surprising his female victims with sexual assault won't know his specific execution date until the morning of. You see, in Japan, the date of executions are kept secret from the condemned and their family. So Takahiro's life will end in a surprise hanging.